Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope everybody had a sumptuous meal today, right? I know it's difficult. I mean, right after the meal, listening to somebody for 30 odd minutes, I can understand. I've been in your positions quite a few times. Anyways, before I begin, let me introduce the topic here. Multi-value Wi-Fi, oh, sorry, I think there's a typo here. Uh, yeah, so multi-value Wi-Fi, what the heck it is. Not very different, right? With all due respect to the wonderful ladies here, but us mortal men find it a little difficult to understand them, right? Let's agree, it's a little complex. Your girlfriends, your wives, it's a little complex. It's not very different with Wi-Fi. And while we discuss this, I'll tell you why it is. It still doesn't go away, sorry. Okay. Now, when you hear Wi-Fi, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? You expect it rather everywhere, right? If you can offload your 3G networks and data traffic onto Wi-Fi, free internet Wi-Fi, nothing like it, right? So obviously it has brought in a lot of ease of use. You were tied before, say 10 years from today, you were tied to your desks to do your job, but today you are completely mobile within your enterprise organizations, within your home space, you sit out in a coffee shop, everywhere that you go, you'll find Wi-Fi, right? And it probably has become a second nature to all of us, right? One key thing that I wanted to bring to your notice is that it's an off-the-shelf available devices. All right. When I mean off-the-shelf available devices, what I mean here is that these are unlicensed band devices. Unlike GSM, CDMAs, you don't need to purchase Wi-Fi licenses, licenses to operate these devices. These are unlicensed, right? So you go to a Chroma or you go to any shop, they're freely available for you, right? Now, one big advantage of this being unlicensed is that it encourages a lot of research around it, right? Now, if you ask me the current state of research, how many of you remember the good old Doordarshan days? And how many of you went to the rooftops to adjust the antennas in the direction? Great. The reason I wanted to remind you of this forgettable frequency is that the current state of research is actually happening on the TV space to see if the Wi-Fi could be delivered over these frequencies, which is currently lying unused. Right? So as I said, it encourages a lot of research around this technology space. However, there is a small caveat around it. Since it's unlicensed, and it was meant for people to be using it for ad hoc purposes at homes, small networks kind of thing, but it eventually evolved to be a technology which today most of the enterprises are adopting to. Now, as I said, since it's unlicensed, it also encourages a lot of minds to come up with a lot of hacks, a lot of exploits, which becomes a nightmare for today's enterprises. So, without getting too deep into the technology part of it, what I thought today would be best is to kind of make you abreast with what is the latest state of technology, where we stand today when it comes to Wi-Fi, what are the various applications that various organizations are using, what are the security, one of the obvious important factors associated with using Wi-Fi is the concern about security around it. So broadly, I'll be touching all these points. However, only question that I would like to avoid during this discussion is the how part of it, which I'll be more than happy to take after the talk. But any other questions, feel free to just interrupt me whenever you want. Now, as I said, wireless, John very rightly put it in these words where he said wireless is a wonderful thing unless you are worried about security, right? And when I say that, what do I mean? These are a couple of examples which I think everybody is aware about, right? The first one where, there was a famous US retail chain which was hacked for its data, actually ended up losing a lot of credit card details and ended up in a big lawsuit. Everybody's aware about that. A lot of things do not come in news, but we are aware, how vulnerable Wi-Fi is. And a recent scan of, I probably should have included that slide as well here, but we did a recent war driving effort here in India. The state hasn't improved much. Metros like Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, they still have a lot of access points which are actually open with no security at all. Forget, no security, web, I don't consider them to be any authentication mechanisms, because web actually stands for if, in my personal opinion, it stands for worst ever protection, right? It does not serve any purpose, right? Now, what do I mean by multi-value Wi-Fi, right? So these are the four things broadly where I could categorize multi-value facets of Wi-Fi today. The first and the foremost is no Wi-Fi. Now, it may sound a little ironical here. We're talking a lot about Wi-Fi, usage of Wi-Fi, but what the hell is no Wi-Fi? Anybody who would like to take a guess on it? Anybody? Why would somebody be interested in no Wi-Fi? Okay. Most of the security, government security agencies today still have a no Wi-Fi policy. A lot of data centers are not supposed to use Wi-Fi. But the question is that how do you ensure that there is no Wi-Fi, right? Having that written on a piece of paper on the corporate docket does not solve the purpose, right? If you ask me, today the technology has advanced where you don't even need a piece of hardware to carry on and plug it to the network to make your network wireless, enabled. You can convert your own laptops into access points, and that's the end of it, right? There are USB sticks which can be used as access points, right? So this primary reason is where, a lot of security-focused companies do not want to have Wi-Fi network, and that's prevalent even as we speak right now. Primary reason would be to quarantine APs if connected to the enterprise network, or prevent Wi-Fi connections to and from enterprise Wi-Fi clients, right? Now, that's another classical example. If you have if you say that I'll not use Wi-Fi, the first thing that you'll probably prohibit is using access points on your corporate networks, right? However, what about the clients? The clients sitting in your enterprise environment, what about they connecting to the outside world over Wi-Fi? That defeats your purpose again. Secure Wi-Fi, this is something which is most prevalent today. Most of the organizations are going with Wi-Fi as their first source of network. The first point obviously is ubiquitous Wi-Fi coverage that you expect anywhere that you go, in and outside the office, big campuses, your home, anywhere, right? However, again, from a security standpoint, the major concern that most of the enterprises would have to quarantine the unmanaged access points if connected to the enterprise network. And when I say unmanaged devices, I'll discuss this in more detail in the following slides. Prevent enterprise Wi-Fi clients from connecting to external and guest Wi-Fi. That's one thing that we already discussed. Prevent external Wi-Fi devices from accessing enterprise APs and clients. That's, I think, one of the most simplest ones. Now, compliances, I know it's a dreadful thing, right? For most of us who are working in enterprise organizations, I think most of us would dread with Wi-Fi compliances, right? Now, when it comes to compliances, everybody of us know that they evolved out of, they all have evolved out of the security issues that most of the organizations would face, depending on various verticals that you might be working upon. But today, as we speak, PCI compliance, which is the payment card industry compliance, is the most strongest one, which enforces most of the retails and the banking and financial institutes to make sure that their wireless networks are actually secured. RBI guidelines are one of them for banking and financial institutes here in India. SOX, GLBA, HIPAA for respective verticals. Monitoring. Now, before even discussing the security aspects of it, let me bring forward to you guys one of the core issues, or one of the core reasons, as I see, for the vulnerabilities that are associated with Wi-Fi. The most important one is that it's not visible to you, right? Unlike your wired networks, which had physical foundation within your premises and were visible actually at the first place, these are firstly not visible to you, and second, they spill out of your building premises as well. Unfortunately, you don't have many resources to contain them. right? There are a lot of technologies where you can have, special metal coatings on your wall, but they are, in my opinion, really impractical approach. And what if I said that if I could bring in some visibility into what is happening in your airspace? And when I say visibility, I don't mean what is happening on the network side of it, but purely on the wireless space. What devices do you see in the air, irrespective of whether they are yours, not yours, your neighbors, hotspots, whatever. So in my opinion, that's the first step. However, it finds the last mention here because from business reasons, it does not make sense, right? So let's quickly glance through the basic Wi-Fi threat categories that you may come across. And again, just a reminder here, I'm not talking about any exploits here, right? I'm talking about the physical layer attacks that may happen to your network, right? Exploits may be leveraged upon using any of these physical layer attacks that are possible with Wi-Fi. So the first and the foremost one being the rogue AP, that's the most common problem that most enterprises today are facing. Let's say you have thousands of wireless devices deployed in your network. Can anyone here confirm to me that there is not the 1001th access point in their network? I probably don't think so that there is a way of doing it, right? Because that's one of the most prominent issues. Today, anyone needing Wi-Fi, all you need to do is plug in an access point on your network and that's up. I mean, depending upon what the requirement is, intentions are, does not really matter, right? You're compromising your network by putting in an access point which shouldn't be there on the network. Right? And as I said, you don't even need a hardware piece of access point today. Imagine a scenario if this laptop was connected probably, the corporate network, and I create an access point on this laptop, bridge the two networking interfaces, your whole corporate network is over the air. Right? And these are examples which I'm not sharing theoretical, these are not theoretical examples, these are practically seen examples in the enterprise environments. Right? Just to give you a classical example here, one of the leading IT companies, and I'm sure a lot of IT people would be here working in IT companies, they have something called as the offshore development centers. Now, one of the offshore development centers allows internet, the other one doesn't. And two very good friends work for each of them. One has internet, the other doesn't. The one who doesn't is unfortunate, but he has his friend working in an ODC environment where internet is allowed. Now, what if his friend does is simply creates an access point on the laptop and allows him to connect, right? It becomes as simple as that. Poorly secured enterprise Wi-Fi, that's not something which I'm going to talk more about. Evil twin attacks. Now, very simple to replicate, but a very potent attack. How many of you, let me pose this question. How many of you have accessed Wi-Fi over the airports? I think around 50% of the people here have, right? Only thought that I would like to leave with you guys during the rest of the course of this talk is, were you really sure that you connected to someone which actually posed it to be? Let's say if you go to Mumbai airport, what you get is X brand's free internet Wi-Fi. Are you really sure that you're connecting to that particular service provider? It could well may be the case that a person sitting right next to you creates an access point which has properties absolutely similar to that of the hotspot and may lure you to connect to him. And unknowingly, you connect to that device, and if I provide back, internet on the back end, you probably end up accessing internet thinking that you're using the hotspot, right? So that's one possible, and this is applicable even again in the enterprise networks. All it needs, and as I said, it's an unlicensed band. The basic property of the laptop or the protocol itself is to scan the wireless network first and then connect to the preferred access point. Right? So there is no legal way by which you can prevent a guy coming outside your premises and doing a wireless network scan, because that's absolutely legal, right? And doing a simple wireless scan would give you the properties of all the access points that are visible. A common myth in the industry, again, since we are talking about this point, a common myth in the industry is that if you keep the SSID as hidden or probably not broadcasting, then you probably are safe, but that's not the case. The moment a client tries to associate to the client and sends an association request, the access point actually reveals its SSID, right? So all I need is that one single packet capture, and I'll have the properties of that access point, right? So these are a few things which you might want to be aware about. The other important factor is mobile hotspots. Today, all of us have smartphones which have 3G networks. They allow something what we call as tethering. Now, in that case, how do you stop your employee to connect to his own mobile hotspot and get an access to the internet while he's still there in the office premise, right? Because then he might be accessing internet or whatever sites which are actually not permitted, okay? Now, let me quickly move on to this threat metrics here. Now, whatever we discussed, I hope this is visible at the back, is it? Is it visible to everybody at the back as well? No? Sorry about that. So the first, I'm sorry, I can't do much about it at this moment. Anyways, so the first one is, and I'll quickly walk through this slide. I'll not spend a lot of time on this, but we'll discuss more important things here. So the rogue access point is something which we already discussed about. Misconfigured APs are nothing but those access points which, let's say for example, you have hundreds of access points deployed in your network. What if one of them reboots and goes to factory default? Everybody knows the factory default settings, right? Those are probably no user ID and password, or probably if it is, then it's a common user ID password which is known to everybody, right? That's what misconfigured access points are. Banned devices, a very highly unlikely case, but it does happen. What if the device gets stolen from your network? It has all the right credentials. If it is a controllerless smart edge device, it probably has all the credentials to connect back to your network as an authorized device. Client misassociation. Another classical example probably I would like to share here with you is, ever wondered, went back and seen the list of access points that your client maintains in its history? It remembers all the access points, right, that you have probably connected in the history. All I need to do is do a simple Wireshark scan, and it tells me what access points is this client looking for. And the moment I get that, all I need to do is bring up an access point with a high gain transmit power with, say, high gain antenna, and blow it at the maximum transmit power. The default behavior of these clients, be it Mac, be it Windows, be it anyone, is to connect to the one access point that gives the best signal strength, right? So you automatically get lured and get connected to me. And then it's anybody's guess beyond this. Unauthorized association, that is something which is pretty simple to understand. Rogue clients, I'll skip that. ICS and bridge client, probably a different variant of what we had spoken about. Ad hoc connections, a very interesting phenomena, though neglected, but it's a very, very strong case at various enterprise levels. I'll probably share with you my own experience here. There's a huge mental asylum based out of UK. And it's nothing less than a 7-star property, let me tell you that. I would be ready to be mentally sick to get into that property. I'm telling you that. One look at it and you'll fall in love with that place. It has a 7-hole golf course. It has a temperature-controlled swimming pool and whatnot. Any luxury that you can imagine of is there. And the sole purpose of having that is to make these people feel at home, not to make them feel as if they are mentally sick, okay? They have 3 categories of patients there, A, B, and C. A being the most dangerous one, who can probably even commit murders, right? And they are segregated with a 40-foot wall, and they have better amenities than the rest of them. Now, another, in the same endeavor of making them feel at home, what they did was they gave them Nintendo devices. Ever heard of them, everybody? These are handheld gaming devices, right? But what they forgot is that these Nintendo devices have a feature by which they can connect to each other in ad hoc mode to enable multiplayer gaming. Now, these smart chaps, the A-class patients as they call them, utilize this feature to chat amongst them and plan a breakout. which they were eventually successful in doing that. And that's where they realized when they went back, did some forensics, they found out that this was the place where they actually, planned the whole breakout, right? So it may sound pretty simple, but then, if you apply your brains, you never know how you may exploit them. Students do it very often. If you're giving an examination in the classroom, which is an online examination, all you need to do is create an ad hoc connection with your friend and chat and cheat and, pass out with flying colors. And this happens. This happens a lot. All right, so moving on to the next one. AP Max spoofing, I don't think so I need to dwell much upon it. Honeypot AP is something which is a form of the evil twin attack that we spoke about. DOS attacks, again, a very common form. Any questions until now? Anything at all? All right, great. The other bigger threat is bring your own bring your own device. So that's how probably, most of the organizations look at it, by the way, at least the ones that I've spoken to them about. More about, cost savings, ease of use and stuff like that. But in my personal opinion, I don't think so the industry has matured to that level where a single solution can provide them with it. You can, of course, put together a very strong security solution by putting multiple pieces of products together to cater to your needs. But I think it will take, in my personal opinion, it will take another couple of years to mature to that place. But, again, the same issues. Anyways, Wi-Fi was going through this issue of having, ability to manage the unmanaged devices, and then again, this becomes another big issue for the network administrators to take care of. Now, very quickly, let me also share with you the latest state of technology when it comes to Wi-Fi. We all know about .11n, and as we speak, the draft of .11 AC is already out, right? Which is promising gigs of network bandwidth. So in my opinion, if you ask my personal opinion, I think once .11 AC, the complete protocol is standardized, that would probably mark the start of the end of wired networks, because that's one big concern that most of the enterprises earlier had, that wireless was not providing the kind of bandwidth requirements that they had and they had experienced with the wireless networks. Software defined band and log radios, you should have flexibility in terms of defining what radios you want to use for. A simple example is .11a protocol actually is used for voice, and .11b and G is actually used for data transfers. So you should have that capability. By the way, just out of curiosity, everybody is aware about A, B, G, N, all the protocols that we have in Wi-Fi? No? Okay. So the first protocol, I'm probably digressing from this, but I think it's in the interest of everybody here that I spend a couple of seconds here. The first protocol that came out was .11b, which was giving 11 Mbps, was working, and then came on .11g, which gave 54 Mbps. Then came on .11a, which again promised 54 Mbps, but was on 5 gigahertz band. B and G were on 2.4 gigahertz band. Right? Now, as we speak, we have .11n, which promises 450 Mbps of link speed, both on A and BGN. Right? Now, 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. Let me pose a question here. How many of you are here from electronics and communication background? Great. Only a few. Anybody can tell me what is the primary difference between 2.4 and 5 gigahertz? In terms of network usage, what would be the reason? Or, sorry? Sorry? Okay. What else? In terms of coverage, which one is better? 2.4 obviously is better, right? Because it gives you more coverage. 5 gigahertz give you less coverage, but it has multiple non-overlapping channels. .11b and G have only 3 non-overlapping channels, which means that you'll have to live with a lot of interference, right? A simple analogy here for people not from this background is that if you have ever walked on Mumbai streets, or for that matter, streets in Delhi, have you ever heard loud music played out of a moving car? Everybody would have, right? What's the first thing that you guys hear? Is it the lyrics? Beats. Beats, right? Why is that so? Ever wondered? Absolutely. Because the beats are played at a lower frequency and hence they travel longer distance than the lyrics, right? Okay. Intelligent edge, controller-less, fault-tolerant architecture. What I mean here is, when this industry of Wi-Fi actually started off, there were fat APs and there were thin APs. Not they were actually ugly-looking fat APs and thin APs, but when I say fat APs, it means that the intelligence actually lied on those APs. And thin APs meant that the intelligence lied on the controller, not the APs. They were just relaying what is happening, right? So as the industry progressed today, and Wi-Fi has been extensively used, one critical factor for deployment or usage of Wi-Fi is distributed deployments, right? And when I say controller-less intelligent edge access points, what it means is that the intelligence lies on the access point and not on the controller. So you are eliminating the dependency on the central controller, right? But there's again a major drawback here. What if the controller goes down? Then that becomes your single point of failure. However, there are workarounds around that as well, but I'll probably not get into that detail as of now. Multiple SSIDs, multiple VLANs, you should have capability to tag multiple SSIDs to multiple VLANs so that network access for various domain users becomes seamless. Client fingerprinting, ability to recognize what kind of clients are there in your wireless airspace. That's something which is very critical. Guest Wi-Fi and analytics and social media integration, this is the most happening space around Wi-Fi today. If you go to a retail outlet in US, what you'll find is that if you connect to an access point, they'll ask you to like their Facebook page, Twitter page, or LinkedIn page. By that, you're giving a big boost to their social media presence. However, that's not all. The analytics engine behind that actually captures your details, publicly available information that are there. Your picture, your email ID, your age, your gender, whatever. And imagine this kind of a data being accumulated for years. It becomes a very, very powerful marketing tool for these people because then they know what is the gender ratio of people walking in the store. They know what is the age group of people walking in the store. And if they're able to correlate this with their billing solution, they even know what your spending capacity is. So tomorrow, Mr. XYZ or Miss XYZ, if she walks into the store, they can push specific coupons, discount coupons to them saying that 50% off on your favorite beverages or 50% off on your favorite clothings, right? So this is what the state of the art today is when it comes to Wi-Fi, guest Wi-Fi with analytics and social media. One important aspect, though a little different from what we were discussing, is Wi-Fi troubleshooting. And this is what most of us love to do, right? You should have a capability. Imagine a scenario where you have multiple people sitting out of multiple offices and everything is centrally managed. How do you do troubleshooting of devices which are there separated by oceans? So let's say you have an office here in Goa, you have an office there in Mumbai. If something wrong happens in Mumbai, you should have capability of sitting here and troubleshooting, taking a remote packet capture to troubleshoot what's happening in the airspace. Now quickly about the WIP solution. The WIPs, by the way, is wireless intrusion prevention system. And today, as we speak, these two parts of Wi-Fi, which is the Wi-Fi access and the Wi-Fi wireless intrusion prevention system, are delivered as a single package. Earlier, it used to be an overlay architecture. And it still is an overlay architecture for a very security-conscious organization like investigating agencies, security agencies, defense organizations. They still go with an overlay architecture where you may have a Wi-Fi infrastructure and a security solution sits on top of it to monitor, which is obviously vendor agnostic, to monitor, detect, and prevent you from any threats. So if you roll back a couple of slides, the threat metrics slide that I shared, the WIP solution essentially prevents these threats from happening, okay? So accurate classification is one of them. Most critical part of any wireless intrusion prevention system, I would say, is the backbone of it. If you're excuse me, if you're able to classify your devices into what is authorized, rogue, and external, I think 70% of your job is done, because prevention is a relatively easier part of it, right? Preventing a misassociation, preventing a client connecting to outsiders and stuff like that. So this is what I was talking to you about. So this kind of summarizes the prevention of all the devices, or rather threats on the networks from the wireless aspect. In terms of architecture, I think plug and play is something which is must. Location-based administration, if you have multiple locations, you should be able to administrate that, and single console to centrally manage. I'll probably, skip this part of it. This is a summarizing slide, I think. As I said, don't forget to, attend our workshop tomorrow, which is troubleshoot Wi-Fi like a wizard, which is tomorrow at, say, 1400 hours at the Neptune Hall. I think that's pretty much it from my side. We still have, I think, 3 minutes left with us, so the forum is probably open for